Yeah, so first we've got Levi Sfarin on the project breakout rooms. Hybrid cellular pots, a molecular dynamics model of cells on synthetic 3D collagen fiber networks. Um, Next we have Amar Yassir on modeling Leptospira interrogans biofilm architecture under fluid flow using CompuCell3D. Next, we've got Kyle Hawkins, cellular pots model of dental-plaque microbiome spatial structure with pH feedback. I think is in a breakout room talking to Lorenzo right now. Um, Aritra Chatterjee. Title of the project is The Role of Initial Confining Geometry and Underlying Substrate Mechanics and Regulating Collective Cell Migration. Next is Marcella Torres, modeling subepithelial fibrosis in the small airway. Gabriel Nicolai, project is Oxygen Heterogeneity and Bone Cell Dynamics in a Perfused Bone-on-Chip Scaffold. We've got Nathaniel Lesage, project on bone remodeling, with more details in the document here, as well as the slides I think that Nathaniel presented a couple days ago, or last week maybe. And then we've got Shivani Agarwal on modeling cellular heterogeneity and collective migration during EMT, which is endothelial mesenchymal transition. Julio talked about a little bit earlier this week. If your name is missing from this list, or if you have the wrong project title or something like that, let me know and we can fix it now. Because this is a document that is editable by everybody who views it, sometimes we have issues where things get overwritten by accident. So if you notice that your project has gone missing or the wrong information is in your fields, let me know and I can roll back the version to where your information was correct. Gabriel asks, will we need to develop the project and submit it, or will there also be a presentation? I'm sorry if I missed this information at some point. We did talk about that. It was a little bit early last week, so it's okay if you've forgotten or if you missed it at this point. You won't have to submit your project anywhere, but we do have people give a very brief kind of final summary presentation on Sunday, just so everybody can see where all the different groups' simulations ended up at the end of the weekend. It's nothing super formal. We do have a small template for you to present just a couple of different things, kind of like an extended version of the lightning talks, basically, but with model progress at the end. But it's very informal. The hackathon is here for you to get experience working on your models, not for us to be judging anything. Obviously, if you do want to continue working on it and maybe turn it into a publication, or if your simulation is going to be part of your thesis or something like that, we're happy to continue working with everybody after the hackathon. Or if you're just modeling for personal interest, that's fine too. We're happy to work with anybody who is wanting to use CompuCell.
I
But
think
particularly for thesis and papers, we are available to help troubleshoot and things like that, because we know those things can be time dependent sometimes.
Excellent. So the idea here, I'm in a bit of an awkward position trying to go through all of my notes from a year ago. Actually, I participated in this in 2023, and the project that came out of it for me was like an M1 to M2 transition, a simple M1 to M2 transition with parameter scans. But I ended up building the rest of that model as an ODE, and now I'm hoping to connect that to a tissue layer model. Still trying to figure out how that's going to work, so I might seem a bit confused as I present this. But basically the background here is the inflammation has sort of a type 1 and a type 2 immune response. So what I look at is innate immune response. So I really focus particularly on macrophages, which is a type of immune cell that performs different functions ranging from responding to pathogens and injury to like helping repair and build up tissue. So the idea here is what happens to the innate immune response when there are repetitive exposures to particulate matter from biomass smoke, although the model is really very general and it can be applied to all kinds of different, it's just a general inflammation model that has a very simple Boolean switch to model exposure. So it could be used in a variety of applications. But basic idea, you have an early type 1 immune response that should resolve, but repeated exposure can drive a persistent type 2 repair state, which can lead to excess tissue deposition and all kinds of other problems. The cells involved would be like epithelial cells. I mean, there's more cells involved, but a simple representation would include macrophages, epithelial cells, fibroblasts, myofibroblasts, because these are all involved in this repair process. And excess tissue can cause small airway wall thickening and the lumen, the airway to narrow, so that can be irreversible. So I'm interested in looking at this transition from a reversible response to a potentially irreversible response. And the published model, which is not this image that I have here, is just to illustrate this idea of having epithelium and immune cells as amplifiers for this repair process, and then effectors of the repair process, airway remodeling. I really like this very simple graphic. It's not my model, though. My model is an ODE model that reproduces M1 to M2 timing, but it does not have any fibroblasts. It doesn't have any spatial dynamics at all. So the idea here is to look at this second portion of the inflammatory response. So we have the initiation of, we have all these effectors and amplifiers for fibrosis, but I don't have a way of modeling the actual fibrosis process right now. And I think the lung is looked at a lot, but not so much small airway. So I'm interested in looking at this early part of the disease process, especially now. I think developing countries have more exposure to biomass smoke historically because they use it for cooking, but now we have lots of frequent wildfires and things like that. So I'm fairly sure in the developed world it's going to be more of an issue going forward. And the hypothesis too is that remodeling is the step that turns this reversible inflammation into a structural disease. And I'm interested in looking at diffuse versus spatially oriented fibrosis. Don't fully understand all the dynamics there because I'm not a biologist, I'm a mathematician. And my collaborator really looks at in vitro studies, not in vivo. So I'm really looking for more expertise there. Personal note, I just accepted an invitation to publish in this special issue on epithelium immune interactions that has a deadline of May 2027. So it's a nice thing to have a potential product from this. And I also am director of a integrated chemistry, biology, mathematics training program for mostly pre-med, pre-health students. So I'd really like to, and I do research with these students. So I'd really like something that they can use, or like getting other people who are interested in working or presenting to these students involved. The idea for the hackathon is very simple for now. I'd be thrilled if I could figure out how to connect the ODE model that I've previously built or a simple toy model to CompuCell3D with just using some chosen outputs. It could be the anti-inflammatory signal, the percentage of the epithelium that's damaged. I would like to set up the structure, so that involves making some decisions about how complicated it should be. Should it just be layers? Should it be like a cross section? I don't really know at this point. And those are the components that I'm hoping to include. And then two fields, a growth factor field that is scaled by the number of macrophages in the ODE layer maybe, and that is and a ECM collagen field. So future modeling goals are many, and I've included some of my sketches. The issue is most of my notes are handwritten, so I had to take those and like I've trained an AI agent to help me organize all of it. I learned GitHub over the summer so I could organize all of my stuff, but this is like some sketches of what I was thinking. I could either have layers or like something that is actually spatial. Don't know yet, but future modeling goals would be to measure some of these things. And then because my colleague looks at antioxidant interventions, maybe do some of those, locate a signal threshold where this focal to diffuse transition or diffuse to focal transition happens, or where it becomes self-sustaining. And I have a lot of prior CompuCell3D models and agent-based models and prior work to look at. And these are all the things I'm hoping to find in potential teammates. Thanks for listening.
That's fabulous. I don't remember last year, did you talk to Michael and Joel at all? Because they've
I
been
didn't.
working on fibrosis in the eye.
I did not. In 2023, I think, is when I participated
Okay, so it's 2 years.
and
So they
worked with
hadn't
them.
started their fibrosis work. Now the person we really should patch in. Michael has been doing more of the technical side of it. Joel has been doing more of the biology side. But maybe, and you could reach out and see if Joel is willing to meet with Marcella for a bit, either tomorrow or Saturday.
Yeah, I know Joelle is I think just finished up a move to Maryland. We're all moving right now. It's been a busy summer, but he is planning on attending most of the hackathon. I'm not sure if he'll be there tomorrow, but I know Saturday and Sunday he will be for sure.
That would be
But
great.
maybe you could email him and say there's somebody working on fibrosis who has pretty sophisticated model already.
Yeah, I'll put you two
Because
in touch today.
because that M1, M2 switch is something that they've been worrying about too, but I don't think they have a good model for that. On the other hand, they've been working more on the structural side of modeling fibrosis.
Okay.
So it's too bad that TJ isn't available this year. He's got some things going on, which mean that he's not able to participate. Maybe he could come in for a few minutes, because I think he'd be very excited by where you are with this. And he's, of course, very interested in converting ODE models to agent models and vice versa. So that's also something interesting. I
Yeah, I was
guess,
looking at his COVID model for inspiration there.
I mean, of course, that's a much simpler model than the one you're doing, but I think it's exciting. It's also, of course, very timely. There's this, right? The ARPA-H circle grants are all on the area of critical immune response in ICU patients, and a lot of the focus of those is going to be on lung. So it's an area that's going to be getting, I think, a lot of attention. So I think the hardest thing, and you've already done so much, is going to be selecting components to start building from, because you've outlined a comprehensive model. It's quite elaborate and fascinating. The question is how to build it up stepwise so that it's managed.
That's what I need some advice. That's what I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out is what's the least complicated starting point and what I don't want to build too much in the direction that I'm going to
Yeah.
have to back away from later if I need
Yeah.
ECM stiffness, for example.
Michael, maybe you want to speak up and make a few comments about your experience trying to model fibrosis.
I mean, it partially depends on what fidelity you want to put it. So for us, we just did for the keratocyte fibrosis, we just have an ECM-field variable that it writes into, and then that actually informs the pixel flip probability. So as it becomes more dense, cells are less likely to move through it. And then we also had, in the complete absence of ECM, the cells actually will not move into that space either. So we have a kind of a dual phase penalty into no ECM zones and then 2 high ECM zones. And then in our model, we had fibroblasts depositing the ECM into the field. So it could try to rebuild, whatever injury that did occur.
Well, that's good to hear because that's what I was going to do is an ECM field and have the fibroblast deposit it. And it sounds like, but I was worried how that would, its stiffness that I guess is important as a feedback loop here. It sounds like you have density of the ECM field reducing motion of cells.
Right. Well, using density as a surrogate for stiffness isn't a terrible place to start. It's not perfect, but it's not so far away that you're going to get qualitatively wrong answers, I think.
It's a good first approximation. You also have versions of it that does use a tensor argument so that it can express fiber alignment. So you can get a more complex energy movement penalty. So it's possible. I can come talk to you. I could probably share some like plugin code with you to get this penalty working. If that's what you do want, you want inhibition due to ECM-field arguments.
Great.
But yeah, in our model, we really only focus on keratocytes, which are the basically native fibroblasts of the eye. And we're not modeling M1, M2 like transitions in the for the macrophages.
Yeah, I'm not, that's in the ODE. So my thought was that those interactions, there's a separation of time scales there, so that I would keep in the ODE, and then the longer time scale tissue building process happens in CompuCell3D, and I just have to figure out how frequently they talk to each other and how to do that.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, Jim was talking about separation of timescale issues a little yesterday. He might have some ideas about this as well. We could get him to patch in.
That would be great.
I mean, the idea of using these things in instructional situations also is exciting to me.
Yeah, I've had 12 I've published, this paper that I published was with a high school student and a couple of undergraduates, and then a former student who is getting his PhD in chemistry now. And so it needs to be accessible to first year, because I'm mostly getting these students to do research with me. They're underrepresented, limited income students who feel like they can't do math mostly. They're in this program to get help with that aspect of it. And so I really want them to come work with me this summer after their first year. That means it needs to be accessible for them. So I like this idea, and exciting for them. I like this idea of getting them using CompuCell and building it up sufficiently so that they can do things like parameter scans and experimentation, not actually build the model. I tried that. There's not enough time to get them to learn CompuCell3D to do
Yeah,
that.
I think that's something where I think PhysiCell Studio, it's faster for people to build models. I wish we could get a bunch of computationally oriented undergrads to build the equivalent of PhysiCell Studio front end for CompuCell. I don't think it's actually going to be that much work now with coding assistants, because that way you say, I want these cell types, I want these cell cycle times, and so on. And then it builds the model for you, so you don't have to do so much hand coding. It's a little limited in the sense that there's certain things you can't do with it. You still have to put my code here at some point, but you could do a lot more of the model development that way. I think also Joel and Michael and Lorenzo thought a little bit about how do you package these models, usually using something like a Jupyter Notebook, so that they look more accessible. You have sliders and things so that the interaction with the model is easier for a student. So there are a lot of directions to go here. I'm interested in supporting you on all of that. Now, which was the paper that you mentioned? Was this the 2024 Immune Digital Twins paper? Which was the paper? I was just looking for your paper. You said the paper was published recently, and I'm trying to see which one was the.
Oh, the ODE model?
Yeah.
That one is development. Starts with development of so 2025 development of a mathematical model of the innate immune response to inhaled toxicants.
Got it. I'm really looking forward to working with you this weekend. It's going to be fun.